Good evening. My name is Randall Rose. I'm a member of the Rhode Island Coalition to Defend Human and Civil Rights, one of the groups that is supporting the Community Safety Act. And I'm here to talk about sections F1, F3, F4, and F5 of the proposed ordinance. And these sections deal with surveillance and privacy, which everyone knows is a big issue now. A big issue because we've seen an expansion in the powers that the government forces have to watch what we were doing, but there hasn't been a lot of extra accountability given. There hasn't been a lot of extra ability for the public to see what the police and other forces are doing with the information they collect, and there hasn't been a lot of ability for the public to make rules. And this always happens when you're dealing with important rights and freedoms. There are periods when people's rights and freedoms get decreased, and there are periods when the people speak up and they decide we want our freedoms back, and start deciding to set some ground rules, and this is what this Community Safety Act is trying to do. Okay, just to be clear, these sections are about how the police can collect information when it's appropriate to collect information. And I should give some background about things that can go wrong when the police start collecting too much information, or other government forces do. A few years ago, an anti-war group in the city of Providence called Community Coalition for Peace was formed to oppose the Iraq War. Not the other wars, just the Iraq War. They thought the Iraq War was a bad idea. So they decided to have a protest on Pine Street. This was back in 2004. And later, it turned out that because they decided to hold this protest on Pine Street, somehow the government found out about their private discussion and decided to post a notice on a terrorist database about this upcoming protest. So this is a peaceful anti-war group which had peace as one of its main values, but they still got profiled in this terrorist database. And the database said the goal of the action was to build awareness about the group and about group's activities, to get new members. They said maybe perhaps it's legal vandalism, even though the group had no record of that, but in any case, that's not terrorism. There was no evidence that there was going to be a crime, and the group got listed in the terrorist database anyway. And that didn't come out in time, it only came out years later in response to a lawsuit. So we know that in some places in Rhode Island, there's been cases where the mayor has abused the police force to retaliate against people. We want to make sure that the police do not have too much power that can be overused. So they at a recent protest here in June, we were planning a protest in response to the death of black people in New Orleans. We had in Louisiana, the people at the organizing meeting felt that two of the people present were probably undercover officers. They were worried about that. Certainly I can vouch for the fact that there's plenty of record of peaceful anti-war groups being infiltrated. Okay. The one other section about this is that when surveillance is appropriate when there's reasonable suspicion of criminal activity or when there's a warrant. When there's not reasonable suspicion of crime and no warrant, it's not appropriate. And that's a very good standard. It's a standard we should go back to. And some of these provisions protect the rights of juveniles, make sure that juveniles can't be photographed or if there's no crime, or can't be asked for identification if there's no crime. The reason for that is that children are very vulnerable. When children have not committed a crime, if they become known to the police and the police see them as antagonists, it's easy for somebody who's young, who may have different temperament than an adult, to get into confrontations and get led into further trouble.
Sure.
Yes. So it's better to protect people, especially young people who may be subject to discrimination because of their color, or in organizations like a lot of people in Providence are. So we think this standard, good to go back to our